Hello and welcome to Unit 8, Day 3. And today we're going to talk about what theories have developed to explain how evolution occurs. So, we have already spoken a little bit about Charles Darwin, but human beings observed that species change over time long before Charles Darwin. And there was one major alternative theory to explain evolution, and it's really sort of the common sense explanation for evolution. So we're going to talk about it in detail because human beings believed this for a long time, and it was so influential on our thoughts that sometimes people even explain evolution that way today. But we know that this is not correct, and that's part of the reason why we know that Lamarck's theory is not correct is because scientific theories are tested in many experiments. And evolution is a theory that has been tested in millions of experiments. We could even conduct our own experiments. The pepper moth demo that we did during class was an experiment to test this theory of evolution. And every time we test it, we get data that supports the theory. So evidence to find evidence to support the theory, and a scientific theory will have a preponderance of evidence, meaning a lot. But the theory is the explanation for why these facts are happening. It ties everything together. So, this first question I want you to predict. And you might go back and change your answer to this question after we do these notes. So, predict. An area that was once a swamp becomes drier over time. How might this an environmental change? How might this impact the survival of species that live in this environment? Do living organisms adapt to their environments? And how might this change impact future generations? What changes can we expect over time? Or how might this environmental change drive evolution? And I'm going to give you one hint for how to answer this question because I'm not going to answer it for you. You're predicting is environmental changes and death are both major drivers of evolution and drivers of evolutionary change. So how would this environmental change impact the genes in future generations based upon this prompt? So answer that question. Pause this video and answer that question. And then let's go on and continue with part A, the development of the theory of evolution. So what is an adaptation? An adaptation is basically genetic traits that enhances the ability to survive or reproduce. It can be a mutation that is present in one individual. It helps them survive. They reproduce and have more offspring. The other members of the population that don't have that trait aren't as successful at surviving and reproducing. And over time, it will become more prevalent or common in the population. But these adaptations, we use this word sometimes to describe things that happen during an organism's lifetime. And this is what Lamarck thought. So we know adaptations result from genetic differences that are random. But Lamarck didn't think so. So let's talk about his theory. Lamarck's theory of evolution says organisms that acquire or develop adaptations to meet their needs in an environment. So organisms acquire adaptations. And we know this is not true. Specifically, an organism can change its physical traits by using its body in certain ways. The characteristics that an organism acquires during its life are then passed off onto offspring. So this crab exercises his claw to make it grow larger. Then the crab passes on the acquired trait to the offspring. And it's the fact that the crab used that claw so much, he exercised it, he acquired strength during his lifetime, making his claw bigger. And so then, as a result, that larger claw was passed on to the offspring, which is why we have crabs with big claws. And we're going to explore how that would actually happen, right? So how would it actually happen that crab generation gets a big claw? We will explore that actually in class. So now we're going to narrate this picture below using the Lamarckian explanation of evolution. So take a look at these giraffes. So we can see here this picture, and now we're going to describe it as evolution according to Lamarck. So we can see the giraffe here is stretching its neck, and when it stretches its neck to reach the food, that stretches its neck longer over its lifespan, and then the giraffe has offspring with long necks because it spent so much time during its life stretching its neck. It acquired this long neck. Why was Lamarck wrong? Well, acquired traits are not inherited. Only traits in DNA are inherited. So if you acquire something during your lifetime, that is most of the time not passed on to your children. So let's say, Chuck Norris gets really beefed in the gym, gets really buff. His baby is not going to be born with super big muscles, right? This is not how genetics work. Why was Lamarck wrong? Organisms do not evolve. So this giraffe's neck is not going to grow longer during its lifetime just because it's stretching to reach the trees. Rather, as Darwin stated, Darwin's theory of natural selection says that organisms born with the best adaptations survive and pass on their traits to their offspring. Organisms without these adaptations die and do not reproduce. So again, death is a major driver of evolution. So then over time, the population changes based on who lived. And as more organisms inherit the adaptation because it's a genetic trait. So now let's look at this claw experiment again. So a crab is born with a slightly larger claw. Just one of these crabs has a random genetic mutation. There is the crab born with a slightly larger claw. The other crabs start dying off. The crab with the largest claw survives best and reproduces the most. So the claws help crabs survive and reproduce. The big claw makes the claw have more offspring, more children. Eventually, all crabs have the adaptation, and the crabs that don't have a big claw have died off, such that now we have either a new species or the entire population has this genetic variant. They all have the big claw. One day, a crab is born with an even larger claw, and natural selection will continue as the population evolves further. So now it asks, giraffe evolution according to Darwin. According to Lamarck, giraffes have long necks today because they have been stretching their necks until they become longer. Let's provide an explanation for how giraffes evolve long necks in the terms of natural selection. What would Darwin say about giraffe evolution? Go ahead and write that in your notes. Pause this video. So according to Lamarck, giraffes have long necks today because of stretching their necks. Why do they really have long necks? Let's explain this according to Darwin. The long neck gene, just a random variation in the population, increased the giraffe's ability to survive and reproduce. The offspring with the long necks were able to have better access to food, right? That environment dictated that the long necks helped the giraffes survive. They had less competition, maybe, in the ecosystem. And as a result, over time, the entire population of giraffes all had that long neck variation. So now you're going to read each of the two theories below that hypothesize how elephants have evolved to have long trunks. Choose a theory and state whether it demonstrates Lamarck's theory or natural selection, so Darwin's theory, and then justify your answer. So whichever one you choose, you're going to explain if it's Lamarckian evolution or natural selection, Darwinian evolution. You're going to do that on your own. Do that part on your own, and then go ahead and do these true and falses on your own, and then go ahead and unpause this video so you can see the answers. So the first one says evolution occurs when organisms adapt to meet their needs in an environment. This is false, and this is a common misconception around from Lamarckian evolution. Whole populations, not individual organisms, evolve over time based on their environment. That's true, baby. That's key. Adaptations are inherited. That's true because they are genetic, right? They're in your genes. Adaptations are acquired based on use. No, no, no. That is a common misconception. If an organism is not well adapted enough to its environment, it dies. Yes, true. This is key. And that death is a driving force behind evolution. If an organism struggles in an environment, it adapts. That is false. And go ahead and complete your exit ticket. This was evolution day 3, and our aim was what theories have developed to explain how evolution occurs. And we talked about why Lamarckian evolution has been very influential on thought. It can seem like it makes sense, but we have studied this many times as scientists, and we have found that Darwinian evolution, natural selection, can be supported by the data. So I hope you like that. Have a super fantastic day, and I'll see you guys all on Zoom the next time we meet. I know this is a weird week with AP exams. Bye, guys.